Hello everyone, welcome back to our YouTube channel. So, it's been a while since I made a YouTube video. So ngayon, for today, i-discuss ko yung income taxation. Now, kasi wala akong discussion on income taxation, pero may mga ibang discussions doon regarding taxation. Pero hindi ko nakita na nag-upload ako ng income taxation. That's why I'm making this video. So let's begin. So what is an income tax? Income tax is defined as a tax on all yearly profits arising from property, professions, trades, or offices, or as a tax on the person's income, emoluments, profits, and the like. It may be succinctly defined as a tax on income, whether gross or net, realized in one taxable year. So, pag sinasabing income tax, ito yung buwis na ini-impose sa pang annual, no, sa isang taon na profit ng isang property, either property or practice ng professions, gaya ng practice ng pagiging accountant, pagiging engineer, pagiging lawyer, etc. Trades or negosyo or offices. Or ito din ay isang buwis sa income or sweldo ng isang tao, emoluments and profits and the like. Income tax is generally classified as an excise tax. It is not levied upon persons, property, funds, or profits, but upon the right of a person to receive income or profit. So, yung income tax, hindi siya property tax because hindi siya based on the property. Hindi din siya tax on person kasi hindi siya ini-impose sa tao, kundi ini-impose siya kung yung tao merong profit or merong income. Kung wala siyang profit, walang income yung person, then walang income tax na pinag-uusapan. Ibig sabihin, income tax ay isang tax upon the right of a person to receive income or profits, meaning the imposition of income tax is dependent upon the receipt of income or profits. Gaya na sabi ko, kung walang income, walang profit, then walang income tax. Now, let's go to the general principles of income. So, dito natin makikita yung mga terms or words na kakailanganin nating alamin para maintindihan nating mabuti yung income taxation. Now, let's go to person. Alam nyo, sa batas, meron tayong dalawang klase ng tao or person. We have one is a natural person or a juridical person or an artificial being. So, dalawa, merong human, meron ding artificial being. Kaya kung mapapansin niyo, the term person here means an individual, a trust, estate, or corporation. Yung mga juridical entities, gaya ng korporasyon, partnership, trust, estate, they are considered as person under the law, and therefore, they may be liable for income taxation. The term corporation shall include partnerships, no matter how created or organized, joint stock companies, joint accounts, association, or insurance companies, but does not include general professional partnerships, and a joint venture or consortium formed for the purpose of undertaking construction projects or engaging in petroleum, coal, geothermal, and other energy operations pursuant to an operating consortium agreement under a service contract with the government. Sa madaling salita, lahat ng mga kumpanya, corporation man yan or partnership yan, joint venture yan, or joint accounts or insurance companies, they are classified as corporations. Meaning, isa lang yung classification nila, regardless of whether or not they are formed as corporation. So, hindi natin tinitingnan in income taxation kung ano yung creation, ano yung existence ng mga companies na ito. For as long as they are partnership, they are companies, joint accounts, joint venture, insurance companies, they are considered part of the word corporation. They will be taxed as a corporation. But take note of the exception. Ang exception dyan, dalawa. GPP, tsaka yung mga joint venture or consortium for the purpose of undertaking construction projects, or engaging in petroleum, coal, geothermal, and other energy operations. Take note of these two exceptions. Number one, ano ba yung general professional partnerships? Ito yung partnership formed by persons for the sole purpose of exercising their common profession, no part of the income of which is derived from engaging in any trade or business. So, gaya na lamang ng practice of law, practice of accountancy, engineering. Kung kayo na grupo or partnership, bumuo kayo ng partnership para ma-practice ninyo yung profession ninyo, then that is considered as general professional partnership. And take note here that dapat common yung profession. Hindi pwedeng yung kasama mo sa partnership is a lawyer practicing law, and then yung isa naman is an accountant practicing accounting. Hindi pwedeng ganun. Dapat common yung profession. Lahat kayo lawyer or lahat kayo accountant so that you can claim as a GPP, which is not included in the term corporation. Next is the term domestic. When applied to a corporation, means created or organized in the Philippines or under its law. So we follow this incorporation test in the definition of domestic. Foreign naman, if the corporation is organized or created not under a Philippine law, or it is a corporation which is not domestic. Non-resident citizen means, so we have four kinds of non-resident citizen under letter E of section 22. Number one is a citizen of the Philippines who establishes to the satisfaction of the commissioner the fact of his physical presence abroad with a definite intention to reside therein. Take note here that there must be a fact of physical presence. Dapat andun siya sa ibang bansa physically. And take note also that before a citizen of the Philippines be considered a non-resident, he must establish to the satisfaction of the commissioner that his physical presence is abroad and that he has a definite intention to reside therein. Second, a citizen of the Philippines who leaves the Philippines during the taxable year to reside abroad either as an immigrant or for employment on a permanent basis. So, iniwan niya ang Pilipinas para doon naman iharahan sa ibang bansa, either as an immigrant, meaning magta-transfer na siya ng residence, or for employment on a permanent basis. Hindi lang one time, kundi permanent. Meron siyang permanency, element of permanency. A citizen of the Philippines who works and derives income from abroad and whose employment thereat requires him to be physically present abroad most of the time during the taxable year. So, na-mention din dito yung physical presence gaya ng item number 1. Kaya lang, dito sa item number 3, hindi necessary na all the time or hindi necessary na sa entire taxable year nasa abroad siya physically. Pwedeng andito siya sa Philippines, andun din siya pumupunta din siya sa ibang bansa, pero ang requirement dito dapat most of the time, halos lahat ng oras niya, halos lahat ng araw niya during the taxable year ay nandun sa ibang bansa. And ang reason kung bakit siya nandun is because of his or her employment abroad. A citizen who has been previously considered as non-resident citizen and who arrives in the Philippines at any time during the taxable year to reside permanently in the Philippines shall likewise be treated as a non-resident citizen for the taxable year in which he arrives in the Philippines with respect to his income derived from sources abroad until the date of his arrival in the Philippines. So, ang taas-taas. So, iksihin natin. Ang ibig sabihin lang nito, kung isa kang balikbayan, you are a Filipino citizen and you are a non-resident because you are either under 1, 2, or 3 above. It's either doon ka physically present abroad, or immigrant ka, or you are employed abroad on a permanent basis, or most of the time during the taxable year, you are physically present abroad because of your employment. So either ka sa tatlo. Tapos ngayon, sa gitna ng taxable year, let's say 2021, bumalik ka ng Pilipinas and you have the intention to permanently reside in the Philippines. Parang hindi ka na magtatrabaho outside or lilipat ka na dito sa Pilipinas. So ano daw ngayon yung tax treatment natin sa income mo before ka bumalik ng Pilipinas at after ka bumalik ng Pilipinas? Sabi ng batas, before ka bumalik ng Pilipinas, lahat ng income mo dyan, magiging income ng non-resident citizen. Okay? Lahat din ng income after mo bumalik ng Pilipinas will be considered as an income of as resident citizen. Okay? Now, number 5, the taxpayer shall submit proof to the commissioner to show his intention of leaving the Philippines, to reside permanently abroad, or to return to and reside in the Philippines as the case may be for purposes of this section. Anong ibig sabihin nito? Gaya ng sabi ko, hindi automatic yung pagiging non-resident citizen ng isang taxpayer. There should be proof that he has the intention of residing abroad or that he works abroad and that his time will be used most of the time abroad. So, i-establish mo muna that you are a non-resident citizen. Either you fall under 1, 2, 3, and 4 before you can be considered as a non-resident citizen. And we will learn later bakit importante na mag-submit ka ng proof at bakit hindi siya automatic. The term resident alien means an individual whose residence is within the Philippines and who is not a citizen thereof. Pag may nakikita kayong alien, hindi yan Pinoy. Not a citizen. Resident meaning dito naninirahan sa Pilipinas. The term non-resident alien means an individual whose residence is not within the Philippines and who is not a citizen thereof. So, alien meaning hindi Pinoy, non-resident meaning hindi naninirahan sa Pilipinas. The term resident foreign corporation applies to a foreign corporation engaged in trade or business within the Philippines. So, ang korporasyon, pwede siya foreign in the sense na hindi siya dito na-rehistro sa Pilipinas. Pero, nagkakandak siya ng business sa Pilipinas. Kaya, ang tawag sa kanya, resident foreign corporation. Pero, if that foreign corporation is not engaged in trade or business in the Philippines, then ang tawag sa kanya, non-resident foreign corporation. The term withholding agent means any person required to deduct and withhold any tax under the provisions of Section 57. So, ang example nito is sa employment. Di ba yung employer natin, kung makikita natin sa ating payslip, merong nakalagay dyan na withholding tax. So, sino ba yung nagwi-withhold niyan at nagbabayad sa BIR? It is your withholding agent. And in the case of employment, it is your employer. The term taxpayer means any person subject to tax imposed by this title. So, ang tawag natin sa tao na subject sa income tax or any tax under the NIRC ay taxpayer. The term taxable year means the calendar year or the fiscal year ending during such calendar year upon the basis of which the net income is computed under this title. Pag sinasabing taxable year, ito yung period covered for the tax computation. So it's either calendar year, meaning to say mula January hanggang December. Fiscal year naman, it begins at a month other than January and ends in any month other than December. So dalawa yung kinds of taxable year natin, calendar tsaka fiscal. The term rank and file employees shall mean all employees who are holding neither managerial nor supervisory position as defined under existing provisions of the Labor Code of the Philippines as amended. The term statutory minimum wage shall refer to the rate fixed by the Regional Tripartite Wage and Productivity Board as defined by the Bureau of Labor and Employment Statistics of the Department of Labor and Employment. So, yung statutory minimum wage, ito yung limitation, yung minimum na babayaran natin sa ating mga employees on a daily basis. And kapag below minimum wage yung binabayad mo, you may be liable under the labor code. The term minimum wage earner, ito naman yung tao na paid with statutory minimum wage. Yung kanyang sweldo is minimum wage. Now, let's go to the kinds of taxpayers. So we have two kinds of taxpayers, individuals and corporations, no? For income tax, ha? So, sino yung mga individual taxpayers? Number 1, resident citizen. So, kung mapapansin niyo, hindi siya naka-define doon kasi madali lang siya. When you say resident citizen, isa siyang Pinoy at nakatira siya sa Pilipinas. Non-resident citizen, ito yung in-enumerate natin kanina na 4 kinds of non-resident citizen. Resident alien, sabi ko, isang foreigner kasi alien at dito nakatira sa Pilipinas. Non-resident alien naman, pag foreigner ka na hindi ka nakatira sa Pilipinas. A non-resident alien may either be engaged in trade or business or not engaged in trade or business. Isa siyang engaged in trade or business kung meron siyang business talaga dito sa Pilipinas. So dalawa yung tinitingnan natin para ma-determine natin whether a non-resident alien is engaged in business or not. The first test is talagang meron siyang, he is actually engaged kung talagang meron siyang business dito sa Pilipinas. And the second one is the 180-day rule. So, kapag ang isang non-resident alien engaged in trade or business, meron tayong presumption na isa siyang non-resident alien engaged in trade or business if he stayed in the Philippines for an aggregate period of more than 180 days during the year, during the taxable year. So again, dalawa yung basis natin kung paano natin i-determine if a person, if a foreigner is a non-resident alien engaged in trade or business. Una, kung talagang meron siyang business in the Philippines, then automatically he is engaged in trade or business. Or tingnan natin yung aggregate number of days na nagstay siya sa Pilipinas. If that is more than 180 days in one taxable year, then sabi ng batas, he is deemed to be engaged in trade or business, even if he is not really doing business in the Philippines. So take note na or yung pinag-uusapan natin, either of the two. So it's either talagang may business siya, automatic engage in trade or business, hindi na natin titingnan yung length of stay niya sa Pilipinas. Or more than 180 days siya nagstay sa Philippines, so meron na ngayong presumption or deemed na siya engage in trade or business kahit na wala talaga siyang negosyo sa Pilipinas. And on the other hand, a non-resident alien is considered not engaged in trade or business in the Philippines if, number one, he comes to the Philippines for a definite purpose which in its nature may be promptly accomplished, meaning madali lang niya matapos yung kanyang purpose dito sa Pilipinas. And, or one, who shall come to the Philippines and stay therein for an aggregate period of not more than 180 days during the year. So, pag hindi more than 180 days yung stay niya sa Pilipinas, then he is not engaged in trade or business. Now, for corporations, we have domestic. Sabi natin, kapag domestic, this kind of corporation is created or organized in the Philippines or under its laws. Pag foreign naman, kapag hindi ka domestic, meaning hindi ka created, hindi ka organized sa Pilipinas or under Philippine law. And foreign may be resident or non-resident. Resident ang tawag kapag doing business in the Philippines, non-resident kapag not doing business in the Philippines. Now, punta tayo sa situs of taxation. Okay? Ano ba yung ibig sabihin ng situs of taxation? Situs of income is the place of taxation of income. It is the jurisdiction that has the authority to impose tax upon the income. So, malalaman natin ngayon kung ano yung mga income that are subject to income tax. Depende kung anong klaseng taxpayer ka. So, for resident citizen, yung income niya within and without, taxable sila. They are subject to income tax. So, if ang resident citizen, sabi natin, Pinoy tsaka nakatira sa Pilipinas, may income abroad, may income din sa Pilipinas, i-add yun lahat, subject yun lahat sa income tax. But for non-resident citizen, only the income within will be subject to income tax. But the income without, hindi siya subject sa income tax. Class, ito yung sabi ko kanina. Bakit importante na mag-submit tayo ng proof to the satisfaction of the commissioner that you are a non-resident citizen? Kasi po, magkaiba po ang situs of taxation ng resident citizen at non-resident citizen. Kung makikita nyo, if a person is a non-resident citizen, only his income within shall be subject to income tax here in the Philippines. Kapag resident citizen siya, within and outside the country, lahat ng income niya will be subject to income tax in the Philippines. So, kung gusto mo maging non-resident citizen, mag-submit ka muna ng proof. Hindi siya automatic. Otherwise, pag hindi mo na-furnish ng proof yung commissioner, ika-classify ka nila na resident citizen. Magiging liable ka within and without. For resident alien, same with non-resident citizen within lang. Non-resident alien within din. Domestic corporations within and without the country, and foreign corporations within. Okay? So, status of taxation is very important because this is very important for determining the tax base in computing the income tax. Kung magkakamali ka sa status of taxation, pwedeng mali din yung income tax due natin. What are the criteria in imposing Philippine income tax? Ano ba yung basis natin? Paano natin ini-impose yung income tax? So, we have 3 criteria: citizenship, residence, and source. So, a citizen of the Philippines is subject to Philippine income tax on his worldwide income if he resides in the Philippines, or only on his income from sources within the Philippines if he qualifies as a non-resident citizen. So, based on your citizenship, kahit na saan ka sa bansa or saan ka sa mundo, dahil citizen ka ng Pilipinas, you are mandated to pay your income tax. And depende yan if you are a resident or not. Kung resident ka, worldwide income yung subject sa income tax. Pag non-resident, kahit na nasa ibang bansa ka, kung nag-earn ka naman ng income sa Pilipinas, you are still subject to income tax. For residence criterion, a resident alien is liable to pay Philippine income tax only on his income from sources within the Philippines, but is exempt from tax on his income from sources outside the Philippines. So the residence criterion is the basis why resident aliens and resident foreign corporations are subject to income tax here in the Philippines. Kasi they are residing here in the Philippines and they benefit from the services of the government. Kaya subject sila sa income tax. And source, an alien subject to Philippine income tax because he derives income from sources within the Philippines. Thus, a non-resident alien or non-resident foreign corporation is liable to pay Philippine income tax on income from sources within the Philippines, such as dividend, interest, rent, or royalty, despite the fact that he has not set foot in the Philippines. So, the source criterion is the basis kung bakit yung mga non-resident aliens natin subject pa rin sila sa income tax in the Philippines kahit wala sila sa Pilipinas. Kasi nag-benefit sila. Kumuha sila ng income dito sa Pilipinas. Naging source of income nila ang Philippines and therefore, consequently or necessarily, kailangan magbayad sila, mag-contribute sila sa Philippine taxes. Kasi nagbe-benefit sila dito sa Pilipinas. Now, let's go to types of Philippine income tax. We have graduated income tax, 8% optional income tax on gross sales or receipts for individuals, passive income tax, gross income tax, corporate income tax, minimum corporate income tax, passive income tax, fringe benefit tax, improperly accumulated earnings tax, pero ngayon wala ng IAET, special taxes. But before we discuss them, let's go to the concept of income under the NIRC. Income means all wealth which flows to the taxpayer other than a mere return of capital. Income is a gain derived from labor or capital or both labor and capital and includes the gain derived from the sale or exchange of capital assets. So, yung income po, that is an inflow of wealth other than capital. So, sa madaling salita, yung capital investment natin, hindi yan income. Okay? Dapat yung tubo above or in excess of your capital investment, that constitute income. Kung walang tubo sa capital, wala ding income na pinag-uusapan. So, for example, meron kang business, yung capital contribution mo worth 1 million pesos. During the year, at a loss yung company. Question, meron bang income na pinag-usapan? The answer is no. Kasi at a loss yung company, walang nadagdag doon sa kanyang capital investment. So therefore, walang income. Kung wala namang income, walang income tax. So meaning to say, importante na malaman natin kung na-earn ba natin yung tubo, meron bang tubo sa capital bago natin i-recognize na merong income. Okay? Income includes earnings, lawfully or unlawfully acquired, without consensual recognition express or implied of an obligation to repay and without restriction as to their disposition. So, pwede bang i-subject sa income tax yung income mo sa pagbebenta ng droga, ng illegal na droga? The answer is yes. Kasi ang sabi ng batas, whether lawfully or unlawfully acquired, kahit pa sa illegal mo nakuha yung income na yan, still subject yan sa income tax. Pero hindi sinasabi ng batas na gumawa ka ng illegal. It is a form of penalty on your part. Wala namang sinabi na ang batas nagikan siya or galing siya sa legal means, legal transactions. For as long as that is an income, that is an inflow of wealth, then that will be subject to income tax. Income may be received in the form of cash, property, service, or a combination of the three. So yung income po, hindi lang in the form of cash. Meaning, it may also be in the form of property, service, or a combination of the three. Income versus capital. The essential difference between capital and income is that capital is a fund. Pondo, income is a flow. Ito yung increase in the money or increase in the wealth. A fund of property existing at an instant of time is called capital. A flow of services rendered by that capital by the payment of money from it or any other benefit rendered by the fund of capital in relation to such fund through a period of time is called income. Now, we have three requisites for income to be taxable. Number one is there is income, gain, or profit. Gaya ng sabi ko, income is an inflow of wealth. Income tax is a tax imposed on yearly profits derived from property or from the practice of profession or from the rendering of services. So meaning to say, dapat po, number one, merong income, gain, or profit. Kung walang income, walang gain, or walang profit, walang tubo, walang inflow of wealth, wala po tayong income tax na pag-uusapan. Walang income na subject to income tax. Kung ang isang kumpanya or ang isang tao, taxpayer, ay hindi naka-earn ng income or at a loss yung kanyang business or at a loss yung kanyang pagnenegosyo, hindi po yan subject to income tax. Kasi one of the requirement is that there must be income, gain, or profit. Second, that income, gain, or profit must be received or realized during the taxable year. So, for example, taxable year 2021. Dapat yung income mo is na-realized yan, na-received yan, or nakita mo yan in 2021, not in 2022. Kasi yung income na na-earn mo in 2022, hindi siya i-record sa 2021. So, ibig sabihin, yearly, tinitingnan natin yung yearly income, hindi yung lahat ng income mo mula sa pag-start ng business mo hanggang present. Yearly yung tinitingnan natin kung ano yung income mo within the year or within a taxable year, yan lang yung magiging subject ng income tax during that year. And take note that that income must have been earned, meaning it must have been received, actually received, or it must have been realized. Meaning, when you say realized, hindi necessarily na-receive mo yung proceeds ng income. Pwedeng ngayon mo nabenta pero next year mo na-receive yung payment. That can also be included because ang importante, na-realize siya during the taxable year. Or earn siya based on accrual basis of accounting. And lastly, it must not be exempt from income tax. Hindi siya among those exempted from income tax. Otherwise, alam niyo yung requisites, kapag absent yung isa or lahat sila, ibig sabihin, walang income to be taxable. So kung exempt siya, Ibig sabihin, hindi siya taxable. Gross income means all income derived from whatever source, including but not limited to the following items. Meaning, gross income encompasses all kinds of income. Hindi siya limited dito sa naka-enumerate under the NIRC. These are merely items of income that may be earned by an individual taxpayer or a corporate taxpayer. But it is not necessarily an exclusive list. So pwedeng lahat, even those income that are acquired unlawfully, kasali din sa gross income. Number 1, compensation for services in whatever form paid, including but not limited to fees, salaries, wages, commissions, and similar items. So sweldo. Gross income from the conduct of trade or business or the exercise of profession. So kung nagnenegosyo ka or nagpa-practice ka ng profession, pag may income ka dyan, part yan ng gross income natin. Gains derived from dealings in property. If you are a real estate agent or you are engaged in the business of selling properties, then the income derived from that transaction or from that dealings will be part of gross income. Interests, kung nagpapautang ka, rents, kung nagpaparenta ka, royalties, dividends, annuities, prizes and winnings, pensions, and partners' distributive share from the net income of the general professional partnership. Gusto ko lang linawin yung GPP. Di ba sabi natin kanina, a GPP is not considered a corporation and therefore, hindi yan subject sa tax. Pero, the persons composing the GPP are subject to income tax on their individual income. Kaya nakalagay dyan, partners distributive share from the net income of the GPP. The definition of gross income is broad enough to include all passive income subject to specific rates or final taxes. However, since these passive incomes are already subject to different rates and taxed finally at source, they are no longer included in the computation of gross income, which determines taxable income. Gross income versus taxable income. So gross income means the total income of a taxpayer subject to tax. It includes the gains, profits, and income derived from whatever source, whether legal or illegal. It does not include income excluded by law or which are exempt from income tax. On the other hand, taxable income means the pertinent items of gross income less deductions and or personal additional exemptions if any. Meaning, yung taxable income, meron na siyang deduction. It is the difference between gross income less deductions. That is the taxable income. Or we call it the tax base. It is synonymous to the term net income. So pakita ko lang sa inyo kung ano yung tax model natin for professional or business income. Ayan. Gross sales or receipts less cost of sales equals gross income, less operating expenses, or we call this allowable deductions under the NIRC, then equals taxable income. So, ito yung taxable income. Net na siya ng lahat ng expenses or allowable deductions. So, balik tayo doon. Sources of income subject to tax. So, we have compensation, income from compensation, fringe benefits, professional income, business income, income from dealings in property, passive income, annuities, proceeds from life insurance, prizes and awards, pensions, retirement benefits, or separation pay, income from any other source. Now, we have 3 classifications of income. We have regular or ordinary income, we have passive income, and we have capital gains. So, take note of this classification because we will use this in our succeeding discussions. Now, magkaiba po kasi yung tax rate no, ng regular or ordinary from passive tsaka from capital gains. Kaya this is very important. Now, for regular or ordinary income, ito yung mga income na pag-uusapan natin. We have compensation, fringe benefit, we have professional income, business income, income dealings and property, any other income. Now, ma'am, ano ba yung common denominator sa kanila? Pag sinabing regular or ordinary income, ito yung mga income derived from your ordinary source of income. Like, kung kunyari you are an employee, so ano ba yung regular income mo? Ito from employment, from compensation. So ang tawag sa income mo is compensation income. Kung ikaw naman ay negosyante, So, yung source of income mo, yung regular income mo is the business income. So, meaning to say, pag sinabing regular ordinary, ito talaga yung pinaka-main income mo. Main source of income mo. Saan ba galing? Is it from employment? Is it from the practice of profession? Is it from business? Is it from dealing properties or any other income? Basta main, yan yung bumubuhay sa'yo. That is regular or ordinary income. Now, we have the tax model for professional or business income. Ito yung formula. So, we have gross sales kapag business, receipts naman, gross sales kapag sale of goods, receipts kapag sale of service. Okay? Cost of sales kapag sale of goods, receipts kapag sale of service. So, ano yung gross sales or receipts? Ito yung total na benta mo. Magkano yung nabenta mo? Okay? Presyo, price. This is based on the price of the goods or price of the services rendered. Yung cost of sales naman, ano ibig sabihin nito? Ito yung capital mo. Ito yung magkano ba yung ininvest mo para ma-earn ko yung gross sales na yan. Example, kung nagbibenta ka ng merchandise or goods sa isang convenience store, so magkano yung kompra mo, magkano yung bili mo sa mga items dyan, that is cost of sales. Kung services naman, magkano yung cost of service, like magkano yung pinapasweldo mo sa mga tao mo, magkano yung kanilang benefit. So, yun probably yung cost of receipts. So, ima-minus natin yung cost of sales from gross sales or receipts para makuha natin yung gross income. And then from the gross income, we will deduct operating expenses. Ma'am, ano po yung operating expenses? Gaya ng mga kuryente, bayad mo sa kuryente, bayad mo sa rent ng facility, kung saan ka nag-ooperate, or ano pa, repairs and maintenance, administrative expenses, lahat ng nagastos mo para sa pag-operate ng profession mo tsaka ng business mo will be considered operating expenses. And they are, sabi ng batas, allowable deduction. Bakit may word na allowable? Kasi hindi po lahat ng expenses allowed to be deducted. Okay? Net income, ito na yung difference between gross income and allowable deductions or tinatawag nating taxable income kasi yan na yung part ng income that will be subject to income tax. Okay? Yan na yung magiging tax base natin. But for the regular income tax model, kasi ito expansion. Pero ito talaga yung regular income tax model. Gross income less allowable deductions equals taxable income. Classification of individual income taxpayers for purposes of regular tax. We have pure compensation income earner, meaning wala kang ibang source of income kundi from compensation. We also have pure business or professional income earner, meaning wala kang ibang source of income kundi yung business mo or yung practice of profession. And third, you are a mixed income earner, meaning it's either you are earning income from both compensation and business, or compensation and professional income, or from business and professional income. Now, with respect to ordinary or regular income, a taxpayer may choose between graduated tax rate or 8% optional income tax. Take note, nasa ordinary or regular income pa tayo na classification. Graduated tax rate tsaka 8% optional income tax. Yung graduated tax rate natin, eto siya. Paano ba ito binabasa? Paano ito ini-interpret? Sabi dito, kapag 250,000 and below daw yung income mo annually, 0% yung tax rate mo, meaning wala kang babayaran. But if your annual income exceeds 250,000, pero hindi sobra ng 400,000, then yung magiging tax rate natin is 20% of excess over 250,000. So, for example, gawa tayo ng example. So, for example, yung annual income mo is 350,000. So sabi ng table, pag above 250,000 to 400,000, the tax rate is 20% in excess of 250,000. So ang gagawin natin, i-less natin yung 250,000. So the excess is 100,000 pesos. Now, sabi ng batas, multiply that by the 20% tax rate. The tax rate is 20%. So, magkano yung income tax natin? The income tax is 100,000 times 20% equals 20,000 pesos. So, that's how you interpret the tax table. Okay? So, I will no longer discuss the other ranges, no? Kasi same lang yan ang interpretation. Okay? So, for above 400,000 to 800,000, 30,000 yung first mo na tax, and then plus 25% of excess over 400,000. Ito, bigyan natin ng example, ha? Okay, bigyan natin to ng example. Ang example natin, magkano ulit yun? Above 400, no? To 800,000. Okay. So let's say, for example, yung annual income is 600,000. So, above 400 to 800,000, right? So, ililess natin yung 400,000. Kasi 25% in excess, di ba? Excess is 200,000, di ba? So, i-multiply natin ito ng times tax rate. The tax rate for this bracket is 25%, no? 25%. So, multiply natin yan ng 25%. So, meaning to say, 200,000 times 25%, pagkano yan? 50,000. So, the income tax is at 50,000. Pero, take note na merong 30,000. So, ganito yung pag, ano mo, first, 400,000, the tax is 30,000 plus excess plus 25% of excess of 400,000. That is 50,000. Therefore, yung income tax due talaga natin, total income tax due will be 80,000. Ayan. So, that's how you... So, yan ang ating example, no, for above 400,000 to 800,000 and so on and so forth. Okay? Now, ayan. Ay, tanggal ko. Balik tayo. Okay? So, yan ang graduated tax rate. Now, we also have 8% optional income tax. Now, the conditions for the availment. So, meaning, It's either pipiliin mo yung graduated or itong 8% optional. Depende sa'yo. However, before you can opt for 8% optional income tax, kailangan ma-meet mo itong conditions for the availment. And what are the conditions? The total gross sales or receipts do not exceed 3 million, the 3 million VAT threshold. Meaning, dapat yung total gross sales or receipts mo during a taxable year, hindi sosobra ng 3 million. Kasi kapag sosobra na yan ng 3 million, hindi ka makaka-avail ng 8% optional income tax. Second, the income is derived from the practice of profession or from business. Meaning to say, if yung income mo galing sa compensation, hindi ka makaka-use ng 8%. Bawal sa'yo yung 8%. Yun lang mga taxpayers na nagpa-practice ng profession or from business. What about, ma'am, yung mga mixed income earner? Meaning, meron silang compensation income, meron din silang business income. Sabi ng batas, only the business income will be subject to 8%. But the income from compensation will be subject to graduated income tax rate. Third is the taxpayer should elect the 8% optional income tax in his first quarter return. So sa isang taon, meron tayong 4 na quarters. No? We have from January to March, first quarter, second quarter, April, May, June, third quarter, July, August, September, fourth quarter, October, November, December. So sabi ng batas, sa first quarter return, dapat mag-opt ka na ng 8%. Otherwise, automatic yung graduated tax rate. And you are not a VAT registered person. Kasi if you are a VAT registered person, you cannot avail na of the 8% optional income tax. Kasi the 8% optional income tax will be a substitute to the income tax and the percentage tax. So necessarily, kung ikaw ay VAT registered taxpayer, hindi ka makaka-avail ng 8% kasi that is only allowed for percentage taxpayers. Now, let's have an example. Miss EBQ operates a convenience store while she offers bookkeeping services to her client. So, as you can see, ano ba yung mga source of income dito? Number one is operating a convenience store. So, that is a business income. And the second one is bookkeeping services. That could be a practice of profession. So, we can say that Miss EBQ is a mixed income earner kasi dalawa yung sources ng income niya from business and from bookkeeping services. In 2018, her gross sales amounted to 800,000 from convenience store in addition to her receipts from bookkeeping services of 300,000. Kung ma-notice ninyo, gross sales, di ba, yung tawag natin kapag goods. Receipts naman kapag services. She already signified her intention to be taxed at 8% income tax rate in her first quarter return. So yung question dito, magkano yung income tax niya? And can she avail of the 8% income tax rate? So kung balikan natin yung ano natin, the answer here is yes. No, she can avail of the 8% income tax rate kasi number one, yung total gross sales receipts niya hindi nag-exceed ng 3 million. Second, yung income niya is derived from business and profession, not from compensation or employment. Third, she timely signified her intention to be taxed at 8% in her first quarter return. And how do you compute the income tax due here? So, gross sales from convenience store 800,000, i-add natin yung gross receipts from bookkeeping 300,000. So we have a total sales receipts of 1,100,000. So we will less an amount allowed as a deduction under section 24 kasi hanggang if your income is up to 250,000, that is exempted sabi ng batas. So i-less natin yung 250,000. So the taxable income here is 850,000 pesos. Bakit pala? Kasi the 8% is imposed. 8%, the tax base for 8% is gross sales or receipts in excess of 250,000. So 8% of gross sales or receipts in excess of 250,000. That is the computation for the 8% optional income tax. Sample problem number 2. Ms. EBQ operates a convenience store while she offers bookkeeping services to her clients. In 2018, so meaning same pa rin, di ba? Meron siyang convenience, meron siyang bookkeeping. Her gross sales amounted to 800 pa din, in addition to receipts from bookkeeping services of 300. She failed to signify, hindi daw siya nakasignify ng kanyang intention to be taxed at 8% income tax rate on gross sales in her initial quarterly income tax return. And she incurred cost of sales and operating expenses amounting to 500,000 and 200,000 respectively, or a total of 800,000. How much is her income tax liability? Bakit naging total 800 to? 300 siguro yan. Okay, let's go to the computation. 700 lang pala. Gross sales or receipts, 1.1 million. Less cost of sales na 500,000. Sabi dyan, cost of sales, 500. So we have gross income, 600,000. Less operating expenses, 200,000. Taxable income, 400,000. So the tax due here, gamitin natin yung tax table kanina na nakita nyo. Ayan. 400,000, so nasa second level siya, meaning 20% of excess over 250,000. Kaya yung computation natin is 400 minus 250,000 times 20%, then that is 30,000 pesos. Okay? Kasi hindi niya na-comply lahat ng conditions ng 8% kasi hindi siya nakasignify ng kanyang intention to be taxed at 8% in her first quarter return or initial quarter return. So therefore, hindi siya qualified for the 8%. So ang gagamitin natin kapag hindi qualified is the graduated income tax rates. For sample problem number 3, dito naman, mixed income earner. Realize a taxable compensation income of 920,000 from employment, 2 million in sales, 100,000 other income subject to regular tax, and incurred 480,000 in expenses. So meron siyang employment, meron siyang business, and meron siyang other income, at meron siyang 480,000 in expenses. So how do we compute the income tax here? So we have 920,000 taxable compensation income, sales of 2 million, and other income of 100,000, then that is gross income of 3,020,000. So take note here na hindi na niya binigay yung gross sales or receipts, binigay niya agad yung taxable compensation, taxable sales, tsaka taxable other income. Kaya diretso na tayo sa gross income. Less allowable deductions or expenses amounting to 480,000. Then the difference is the taxable income, 2,540,000. Now, first 2 million, the tax is 490,000. In excess of 2 million, that is subject to 32% based on the graduated tax rate. So, yung income niya is 172,800 plus 490,000. Income tax due is a total of 662,800. So, anong bracket yun ng table? Balikan natin. Yung taxable income 2.5, di ba? So, dito sa ano natin, sa tax table, ayan. So, meaning nasa ika 1, 2, 3, 4, ika-5, ano siya. Kaya ito yung 490 plus 32% of excess over 2 million. Kaya yun yung naging computation natin. Kung mapapansin ninyo, wala tayong, hindi tayo gumamit ng 8% kasi wala namang sinabi that the taxpayer opted for 8%. And secondly, the taxpayer cannot avail of the 8% kasi yung gross income niya or gross sales niya already exceeded 3 million. So therefore, hindi siya qualified. Okay? Even if the taxpayer opted for 8%. Now, let's go to passive income. So passive income, as compared to ordinary or regular income, ito yung mga income na hindi siya main source natin of income. That parang hindi talaga ito yung ano natin, yung regular income natin. Passive sila kasi parang sideline sila na income. So one is interest. Example nito, if you have a deposit account in bank, so that will earn an interest income. And the interest income earned from that deposit will be subject to 20% passive income tax rate. Okay? But for expanded foreign currency deposit system, 15%. For long-term deposits, depende kung ano yung term ng long-term deposit. Pag 5 years and above, exempted siya from 20% passive income tax rate. Kasi sabi pa, ini-encourage yung long-term deposits. 2 to less than 5 years, 5%. 3 to less than 4 years, 12%. Less than 3 years, 20%. For royalties, 20%. Except for books, literary, and musical compositions, subject lang sila sa 10%. Prices, 20% generally, except prices amounting to 10,000 pesos or less. Then, yung 10,000, kapag yung prices mo is 10,000 pesos or less, it will form part of your gross income. Subject to, part siya ng regular or ordinary income, subject to graduated tax rate or 8% optional income tax. But if it is above 10,000, then magiging passive income siya. Other winnings, 20% generally, except for lotto winnings amounting to 10,000 or less, they are exempted. Before the train law, lotto winnings are exempted really. Walang 10,000 or less. Pero ngayon, yung exempted lang na lotto winnings, 10,000 pesos or less. So above 10,000, subject na siya sa 20% passive income tax. Kasi yung magtataya ka sa lotto, hindi naman yan ordinary income eh. Kasi nga, chance yan, based on chance. So, sideline yan. Swerte lang kung manalo ka, di ba? Cash and or property dividends, ito is, this is common in corporations or in cooperatives, no, na pag mag-declare ng dividend, then the dividend income will be subject to 10% passive income tax. Parang in the form of investments kasi ito. But I think in cooperatives, hindi sila subject sa 10% because of their law. Now, capital gains, this is the third classification of income. So we have two kinds of capital gains. It is from sale of, one is from sale of shares of stock na traded in the stock exchange, meaning hindi ito regularly sold in the market. And capital gains from the sale of real property not sold in the ordinary course of trade or business. So the rate is 15% for shares of stocks, 6% for sale of real property. Now for capital gains from sale of real property, the general rule is, ano ba yung tax base natin for real properties? Sabi ng batas, i-compare daw natin yung selling price, yung fair market value na makikita natin sa tax declaration in the city or municipal assessor's office, at saka yung fair market value na provided in the BIR zonal valuation. Whichever is higher, kung ano yung pinakamataas sa tatlong valuation, yun ang magiging tax base natin. Then multiply that by 6%, then that will be your capital gains tax. Exception, meaning kailan ka pwedeng maging exempted from paying capital gains on real property. Take note here na yung sale dito, hindi in the ordinary course of trade or business, meaning hindi ka talaga engaged in selling real properties. Parang ano lang, kunyari meron kang lupa, tapos ayaw mo nang gamitin, gusto mo nang ibenta. So that could be a sale of real property subject to capital gains kasi isolated transaction siya, hindi ka engaged into business of selling real property. Ito yung subject sa capital gains kasi if you are engaged in selling real properties, hindi subject sa capital gains yan. That will become your ordinary or regular income subject to graduated or 8% optional income tax. Now, let's go to the exception. Kailan hindi ka magbabayad ng capital gains? Number one is, ano yung mga requisites? You sold a principal residence. It's either a lot or a house and lot. Meaning, binenta mo yung lupa or yung house and lot kung saan ka naninirahan. That is sale of principal residence. And the proceeds, yung kita mo sa pagbenta ng principal residence, ginamit mo para bumili ng bagong lupa or bumili ng bagong house and lot or para mag-construct ng bagong principal residence. dapat ginamit mo for a new principal residence. Within 18 calendar months from the date of sale, dapat naka-acquire ka or naka-construct ka ng new principal residence within 18 calendar months from sale. Kunyari, nagbenta ka ng January, count ka ng 18 months dyan. So magkano? 12. January, February, March, April, May, June. So hanggang June lang. So from January to June, nakabili ka na ng new principal residence para makaklaim ka ng exemption. Then, historical cost carried over to the new principal residence. Kung magkano yung value ng old principal residence, yun lang din ang magiging value ng new principal residence. Notice within 30 days to the BIR, mag-notify ka sa BIR, and you can avail of this only once every 10 years. So, hindi pwedeng every year. And dapat yung proceeds fully utilized po, hindi pwedeng portion lang. Kasi kung portion lang yung na-utilize, yung portion na hindi nagamit will be subject to capital gains tax. Okay? So, that ends my discussion for income taxation part 1. So, see you in my next video. Goodbye.